Hello everyone. So today I want to talk a little bit about how to butcher chicken. In the cafeteria that we have at school, chicken is the most popular meat that we serve by far. You're going to see some other notes this week about how to butcher other animals, but chicken is very accessible. It's something that you can get at the grocery store easily. It's probably one of the cheaper kinds of meat, so I thought I would show you how to break a chicken down. Now, one of the big reasons I want to do this is because when you go to the grocery store and buy chicken breast or chicken thighs or pieces of chicken, you're actually paying a little bit extra for people to do that work for you, to take off the skin, to take out the bones, to cut it into pieces. So I thought it would be valuable for you to know how to take a whole chicken and break it down a couple of different ways so that you can use it in your cooking at home. So now let's take a quick look at what we have to do this properly. So obviously I've got my chickens here. Okay, so I have my chicken's all set up. I've got them on a baking tray, okay? What that's gonna let me do is it's gonna give me some place to put the chickens and the little pieces of chicken when I'm done so that I don't get chicken juices or anything all over the rest of my cutting area here. Remember, when we're dealing with animal products, we wanna be really careful. So I want to make sure that I'm containing any juices or any pieces of chicken really easily. And if I put it on a tray like this, it lets me do that. Okay, the other things I've got a chef knife here. Okay, I have a boning knife. Remember, that's that knife that's got where we're only going to use the tip of it, and it's a little bit flexible. And I've got a steel that I'm going to use to hone my knife before I start. In fact, I'm going to do that right now. So I've got my base of my knife, base of the steel, pulling up, back and forth like this. Just going to give me a little bit better of an edge on my knife. And then I'll do it again, once again, with this one here. And there we go. Okay, so my knives are ready to go now. Now, what else do I need to be ready? Obviously, when I'm cutting anything in the kitchen, I want to make sure that I have a waste bowl. So I've got one right there. And then I've got my cutting board. Today I've chosen a bit of a heavier cutting board because I know I'm going to have to use a little pressure, a little force when I'm using my knife. So I thought I'm going to use a bigger cutting board because once I get that locked down, it's not going to move around for me nearly as much. And how am I going to lock that down? Same way as always. I've got a cloth here that I got nice and wet. And put it down. And now I'm going to put my board down here. And now, as you can see, that's just about ready to go. So using standard sort of whole chickens that I got here at the grocery store, one thing I'll point out to you is that these are trussed. Now, what does trussing mean? Trussing means that they've taken that little piece of string here, and what they've done is they've gathered the chicken up and they've tied it into a neat little bundle, okay? So it's convenient for you because what that means is when you get home, you can cook this right away. So the reason we truss a chicken is so that it cooks nice and evenly. If I don't truss a chicken, these legs, as you can see, when I cut the string, okay, and I take the string off, taking the string off, okay. Okay, I'm just gonna throw that in my little waste bowl here. And you see what happens to the chicken is it opens up. Now, if I roast a chicken just like this, what's gonna happen is that these parts here will cook very quickly and will actually get quite dry before this middle part is even cooked. So trussing is something that chefs do to chicken and butchers do to chicken so that when you cook it, it cooks nice and evenly and all the meat's cooking at the same rate. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I want to show you two ways to break a chicken down. The first way, we're going to leave the bones in. The second way, we're going to at least partially, I'll see how it goes, but we're at least going to partially debone the chicken, okay? Okay, so here I have my first chicken that I want to work with today. So this time, when I do the chicken, what I want to do is I just want to cut it into pieces that are a little more manageable to cook. They're going to be about the same size, so they should cook at a fairly even rate. But I'm going to leave the bones in. So this would be great for something like a chicken, like a sort of braised chicken dish. A lot of chicken curries are like this. When I was in Singapore, a lot of the chicken curries with the chicken curries, a lot of the chickens were cut up just so. So what we're going to do here is we are going to cut this chicken up. Now, how do I cut up a chicken? Now, here's the problem that people have when they try to cut up chicken. They try to cut through the bones, and you really shouldn't be doing that with meats, especially with chicken, because what happens with chicken when you try to cut up the bones is that the bones end up splintering, and you end up with little bone pieces in whatever you're cooking, and there's a chance you could bite down one of those and crack a tooth. You could swallow one, and it could cause you some internal damage. So there's a special way that we use in order to cut a chicken up like this. So what we want to do is, whenever possible, is we don't want to cut through bone. If we have to cut the chicken up, what we want to do a lot of the time is we want to cut through the joint. So here I have my elbow here, okay? If I try to cut here, okay, if I was to try and cut here, I have a lot of bone to cut through, and I'm going to have some problems, even with my knife. But if I cut here, where my arm bends, okay, it's a lot easier to cut through. In fact, you won't have to do very much work at all. So that's what we're going to do here with the chicken. So I can do a bit of a demonstration here. So I've got this chicken here. I'm pulling the wing out. And what I'm going to do here is you can see how the bone, the chicken joints kind of move here like this, okay? Because that's where they're going to bend. So what I'm going to do here, holding it a bit strangely just so you guys can see, is I'm going to cut right through that joint, okay? No problem whatsoever. There's my chicken wing. And then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to do that on the other side, okay? It's going to glide right on through. No effort whatsoever. I'm barely even pressing down on the knife, okay? So there we go. 2 little chicken wings. And we all eat those at bars and all that kind of thing. Okay, so next thing I want to do when I'm doing this is I'm going to make my life a little bit easier. I'm going to take off the legs next, okay? So here I have my chicken laying out here. Now, you can see that the legs want to kind of sit out like this, and we're actually going to encourage that, okay? So you've got this sort of main body of the chicken here, and what you're going to do is you're going to cut, and you've got the legs. You're going to cut through the skin, not through the meat, just through the skin. If you cut through, you can see that it starts to pull apart, okay? And you can see that there's a space in between the meat that's here and the meat that's here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do that on both sides. I'll do it on this side so you can see it a little bit better, okay? So what I'm going to do is going to pull that back like that, okay? And we're just going to cutting through the skin, okay? There we go, pulling back. So I have something where the chicken legs are laid out a little bit wider, okay? Now what I want to do is I need, right down in here, right deep down in here, there is a joint where the chicken leg, right down in here, where the chicken leg meets the body, okay? Same thing on the other side. What I want to do right now is do something, basically I need to pop, it's like a ball and socket joint. So what I want to do here is I'm going to hold my chicken and I'm going to lift my chicken leg up. And what's going to happen is that little ball and socket joint's going to pop out of the main body of the chicken, okay? So I'm going to do that on the other side now, same thing, okay? Pop. And there it is, okay? Good. Now you can see the chicken's laying even flatter than it was before. So now what I want to do is I want to sort of come across with my knife. I'm going to lay my knife and I'm going to come across here to the body of the chicken, and then I'm going to cut down a little bit, and off it comes. Okay, so there we go. And then I'll pull off the other leg as well. Okay, so here I'm laying that flat like that. I'm going to cut across over top of that bone, okay, all the way in and then down. Okay, so that's great. So now I have 2 chicken legs. If I'm cutting, I could cook them just like this and they're fine. You can buy them at the grocery store just like this. But there is a way of cutting these even more because there is another joint in here. So you can see that this bends right here. So what I can do is I can cut that into 2 smaller pieces that are about the same size. Now, how I'm going to do this is that I'm going to spread this. So this is the skin side and this is the flesh side. If I open this up a little bit, you're going to see a piece of fat along here. Okay, this is like a little line. It's going to tell you where to cut. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your knife and cut right through that little line of fat, and it cuts through right through that little joint here. The bone isn't splintering. Everything's great. Okay, so there we go. You've got the leg. You've got a piece of thigh here. Okay, so there's your thigh, and there's your leg. Obviously, you guys buy chicken legs at the grocery store. You buy thighs at the grocery store. That's how they make them. Okay, so once again, I'll do that on the other side. Coming over here, spreading this out, looking for that nice line of fat that's there, and then I'm going to cut a little bit over to the other side. There we go. And I'm going to cut through that. A little harder with that one. Okay, and there we got our thigh again and our leg. Okay, so I'm going to toss those over there. Now, why would I want to leave the bones in when I'm cooking a chicken? One of the big reasons is that bones have a lot of flavor in them. So if you're cooking a dish with chicken and you leave the bones in, your dish will actually taste a lot better, okay? So we are trying, this is one of the reasons that we use bones to make chicken stock, which is something I'm going to do with these bones eventually in another video. So here we have the chicken breast now, okay? So you've got the chicken breast. These are the big muscles that the chicken would normally use to beat its wings, okay? So what we're going to do now is that you're going to see, you can feel down the middle of this is the breastbone. And what we're going to do here is we're going to come down and cut right through that, okay? Okay, all the way down. Okay? And what you're doing with doing that is if I flip this over now, you can see that this is the backbone of the chicken. Okay? The backbone is not something I usually want to cook, so I'm cutting through one side of that breastbone. Okay? Here's the breastbone here. Okay? So I'm spreading my chicken out. Okay? And now I can see here, I can see the spine of the chicken, okay? Here's a little bit of the wishbone here, a little bit of the wishbone on the other side that we've gone and cut through a little bit, okay? Trying to avoid cutting bones as much as possible, but at this point, if we want to leave the bones in the chicken for making our dish, at this point, we are going to have to cut through some bones. So here I have the spine of the chicken. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come around one side of the spine, okay? And I'm going to make sure my fingers are tucked up so I don't injure myself, and I'm going to cut through the chicken, okay? Just like that. And move down and do it again. Okay? There we go. And then on the other side of the spine, same thing. Okay? So here's the spine. Got my knife here. Gonna use a little bit of pressure. Oops. And same thing here. Okay, all the way down. And there I've taken the spine, the backbone out of the chicken, okay? I'll keep that though, because even if I'm making a stew, there's not really a lot of meat on this, but if I'm making something that I'm cooking in a liquid and I throw this part in, it still has a lot of flavor. It's not something I would eat, but it's something I would maybe pull out before I serve the chicken. And in the interest of that, maybe what we'll do is even just cut that in half, and there we have the actual spine, and then over here, we have the neck. Okay, so now I have these two sort of trimmed up chicken bits here, chicken breast bits. A lot of this here is basically going to be waste product. Okay, so I've got some. It's basically what is skin. So what I'm going to do here is just going to cut some of that off. This is not something I would keep. It's not very super good to eat. Okay. Same thing over on this side. Okay, we've got these beautiful breasts. I'm just going to cut off this extra bit of skin, and there's a bit of bone in this piece. I'll be honest. We're going to get rid of that. Okay, so there's those two beautiful chicken breasts that I would normally buy at the grocery store. If I'm going to do them in a brazo, I want them to be about the same size as these other pieces that I've been dealing with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, and you see the bone is still here, okay? But this bone, a lot of this is very small bones, and some of it, the cartilage is really small. So we're just going to take, and we're going to cut through just like this. Okay? And now I've got some more manageable pieces, okay? And because they're all cut the same size, they're all going to cook at about the same rate, okay? And which is what, remember, that's something, it's the same reason we cut vegetables the same size, so they'll cook at the same rate, so all the pieces of chicken will be done cooking at about the same time. So same thing here, cutting at a little bit of an angle here so you can see here. And, come on. There we go. And cutting through, okay? So there we go. You got the little piece of, the breast with the wing attached, and then you've got this little piece here. Oops, let me trim that off a bit. Okay, you've got some nice little pieces of chicken here. So there's my two ends of the breast. There's the pieces of the breast with the wing attached. There's the legs. There's the thighs. Okay. Okay. So those are the legs. So I've got the wings here, okay? And then I've got those two, sort of the backbone and the neck, okay? So that's how you break that down. Now, if you were to pay, if I buy this chicken for $10 whole, and I break it down, it's much cheaper than buying those individual. If I was to try and buy those pieces that were already cut, they would probably charge me $12, okay? So that's how we break a chicken down into pieces with the bone in. Okay, so for this next chicken, I want to take the bones out because deboning chicken is something that everybody should know how to do. My wife told her mother before we were married that all she wanted from a man was somebody that would debone chicken and kill spiders. So here I am. So we have another chicken here. Okay, so this time what we're going to do is we're going to take the bones out of this, and we're going to portion it, we're going to portion it into pieces like we did with the last time. But this time we're going to take out the bones, okay? So something else you'll find in the grocery store, and believe me, when you are paying somebody extra to take the bones out of meat for you, you are paying a lot of extra for that chicken, okay? So just same as before, I'm going to take the string off my chicken here. Remember, we have that all trussed up, and that's going to help hold our chicken together. If we wanted just to cook it just like this and leave it whole, that's going to help hold our chicken together, right? We talked about that. So I'm just going to take that off like that, get rid of it in my little waste bowl. Now, last time we cut the chicken, I was using this knife because I was cutting through big pieces of chicken, and sometimes I was cutting through little pieces of bone, okay? This time, though, I'm not really going to be cutting through bone. I'm going to be cutting around bone. So for that, what that means is I'm going to use this guy here, which is my boning knife, okay? And that's why they call it a boning knife, because you use it to remove bones from things, okay? So I'm going to start off very similarly to what we did last time, is that I'm going to take the wing, or the little wing bits off the chicken. So just like last time, I've got my chicken here. I'm going to cut through that wing, okay? I'm just going to put this in a pile over here where I had my ones from before. Okay, same thing here, turning it around and cutting through. This is a much lighter knife. It's really flexible, and you can see that I'm using, because I'm cutting through the joints here, I'm using absolutely no pressure whatsoever. Nice and simple, okay? Now, so what I want to do now is I want to take the chicken breast off this chicken. Now, last time we cut right through that breastbone, but now I want to use the flexibility of my knife here, and I want to cut around that, because underneath this is a rib cage, okay? So what I'm going to do here, first of all, is I'm going to take my knife, which is nice and sharp, and I'm just going to split that skin like that, okay? And if I reach in here, what I can feel, if I run my thumb along it, is I can feel the breastbone, okay? So the trick is now, is I want to go down either side of the breastbone and then the rib cage in order to pull off all the meat of this breast, okay? So just going to use and then I'm just using really the tip of this knife, okay? So what I'm doing here is I'm just taking sort of shallow little cuts like this, okay? And I'm pushing right up against that breastbone, okay? Okay, and when I get down to about here, my knife is going to turn. You'll feel your knife want to turn a little bit, because this is where you're getting into the collarbone, and this is what we call the wishbone, okay? So what I'm going to come here is basically I'm just going to do these little cuts like this, okay? I'm just kind of cutting down along the wishbone until I get to the bottom, okay? Then I'm going to come back up here. I'm going to use the tip of my knife again, and basically I'm scraping along the rib cage and I'm kind of pulling away at the same time, okay? So back up again to the top, and you can start to see the ribs and stuff, okay? So here I am cutting and pulling, okay? All the way down, okay? Until I start to see that skin, okay? And eventually I'm gonna have to cut through that skin too, okay? So there we go, all the way down, okay? And there we can see, I've got basically the rib cage here of the chicken, and here I have that whole nice chicken breast there. Now, as we know though, this is where you can see here, this is where the wing is attached, right? And because the wing moves, and this is the last little piece of cutting that I know, I'm gonna have to cut through a joint there, just like I did with our wings here. So I've got this little drumstick, the rest of the wing here, okay? So if I come down here, if I follow this wishbone right down, okay, all the way down, and then I just kind of cut through, there's the joint. That little white piece of bone is the joint, okay? So now I'm just going to lift up a little bit, and I'm just going to take my knife and cut the rest of that piece of beautiful chicken breast off, okay? So that's the first step. We're still going to take the skin off of that in just a second. So now I'm going to do that along the other side, okay? Just a little bit more quickly this time. Okay, cutting down along that breastbone, okay? Using these nice short little cuts, looking for that wishbone, and then I'm going to use my knife to follow the wishbone all the way down, okay? And I've done that now, so I've opened up my chicken a little bit. And then I come back up here just like I did last time. Slowly, 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 bit by bit, pulling away as I'm making short little cuts, okay? Pulling away, and then I get down here to the base, okay? Following the bone of the rib cage all the way down, and I'm just going to cut through, and then I've just cut through that joint bone, okay? So now when I'm just going to turn this around so it's a little bit easier to get to, And I'm just going to, all that's attaching the chicken, the meat to the carcass now is just some skin. So I'm just going to cut through that. Okay. And there we have, there you go. Beautiful breast number 2. Okay. Wonderful. Okay. And what I've got here, I've got a little extra skin. You know what? That's not really good for anything. So I'm going to get rid of that. But now I have sort of the rib cage that I see here. I'm going to keep that because this is beautiful for making stocks with, right? I mean, there's not a lot of meat on here, okay? And that's fine. But I can still boil this up. I can bring this and I can simmer it in some water with some beautiful vegetables and make a stock. And stocks I can use to make things like soups and stews. You know, I could use, you know, if I'm making a stew, I guess I could use water. But if I've got a nice flavorful liquid to use instead, it's a much better thing to be doing, okay? Okay, so now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to cut down here. Now, I'm just going to cut back a little bit of the skin so you can see. Now, just like last time, okay, I had to pop the bone out. So I'm going to hold this down, and I'm going to lift this leg up like this, and it goes pop up, and then there's that bone once again, okay? So now what I'm going to do is just cut all the way through here, and there's the leg, okay, once again, separated from the carcass. So I'll move that over here, and then I'll do it on the other side. Just going to cut back that skin so I can see what I'm doing, okay? And then once again, I'm just going to hold down, pop this out. Now I can see the bone, and then I'm going to just kind of cut straight down through that hole that I made, and there we go. And there's the other leg, okay? One thing I should mention is that when you're working with boning, try not to use this hand, your knife hand, to move the chicken around. Now, it's kind of hard to avoid sometimes, but remember, if you get some sort of chicken juice on your hands become a little bit slippery and becomes just a little bit more dangerous to use your knife, okay? So, what have I got here? I have the carcass, which I can use to make beautiful stock. Since I have a knife in my hand anyways, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this extra little wads of fat off of here, because if I try to use that to make stock, I'm going to end up with a stock that's fatty and not very, it kind of doesn't taste very good, and it's very cloudy. A lot of the time when you're making stock, you want it to be very clear, okay? So I'll tuck that away, and now I have the rib cage that I'm going to take away, I'm going to tuck away, and we use that to make stock as part of one of our eventual lessons. Now, let's come back over here, and let's look at the chicken breast, okay? So here I have some chicken breast. Now I want to take the skin off. Now that I've taken the bone off this is actually pretty easy, okay? So here I'm just going to hold that down like that, and you can see, and in fact, if I do this, what you're going to see is that you can actually just pretty much just pull this right off, okay? Just like this, okay? Right off the leg, and there it goes. Really simple. Do it for the other one, okay? Gets a good grip. I've got one hand gripping the skin, one hand gripping the chicken, and I'm just going to pull that off, okay? Okay, just pulls off, keep on pulling, and off she goes, okay? Great, okay? So there is a not completely boneless chicken breast, but boneless. Now I could, if I want to make a completely boneless chicken breast, I would just cut through the joint, or just cut off this wing, but for now I'm just gonna leave that alone, okay? So there's one, and once again, nice little chicken breast, okay? Nicely cut. I could take this off if I wanted to, but sometimes what chefs will do is they'll actually French these, and this is actually kind of a fancy thing, where you'll kind of cut around like this. This is called Frenching, okay? What you're gonna do is you're gonna scrape, trying to scrape the meat off the bone without accidentally pulling the bone off of the chicken breast, okay? Okay, so I'm gonna get in there, just gonna cut away any excess, okay? And there we go. I'm just gonna pull that off, and cut away the little bits. Okay, I'll throw that over here. Okay, so sometimes you'll see this in a restaurant. You can really actually take your knife and just really give that a really nice scrape. The cleaner you get this bone, the better. Because what happens if I roast this bone and it's nice and clean, see you see that there's a bit of a sheath around the bone. If it's nice and clean, when that roasts, that bone will turn out white, and it's considered quite attractive, okay? So there we go, nice cleaned up chicken breast. What about these legs? Okay, well, first things first, let's get rid of that skin again, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hold down a lot of the time here, same thing. Just going to work my way around and just going to start pulling that skin off of that chicken leg, okay? Okay, there we go. Pulls off, no problem whatsoever. I might as well do the other one while I'm at it. Okay, so here we are, holding the chicken, got a good grip on the chicken. This one though, because the skin goes all the way around, just kind of want to work your way around a little bit. Okay. Yep. And the trick is, of course, getting a nice grip on the chicken. Okay. Now, taking a look at this now, what we're going to see, actually, you know, I'm going to give my hands just a quick wash because they're a bit slippery because I was holding onto the chicken quite vigorously. Okay. Got my little towel that I set aside over here. Okay. So now that I see this, I can see if there's some extra fat on here. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to give that a bit of a trim. Okay. There we go. I'll trim this one off too. There are some cultures that that cook with chicken fat. If you were going to do that, you would maybe take some of the skin or take some of the little fatty deposits that are sort of at the base of the chicken, and you could cut them off. And then if you had a lot of them, you could actually put them in water and simmer them for a while. And a lot of very clear, clean fat would rise to the top, and you give that a strain, and you would have what's called schmaltz, which is that's what it's called in the Jewish tradition. I'm sure other people are using it to cook with too. I just don't know the names of it in those traditions. So here we have chicken leg. Okay, so what we're going to do here, I'm going to show you how to do this as a whole leg. So here we have this chicken. We can see the bone that was attached to our the main body. So what we're going to do here is that, and I know that there's a bone that comes down here, and then there's a joint, because that's that line that we cut through before, and then the rest of the bone comes this way. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to push in with my knife, go down in, and I'm going to find that bone, and I'm going to cut along one side of the bone on one side, and then I'm going to cut on the other side like this, okay? And then what I can do is I can use my fingers and I can pinch around underneath, and I can put my knife all the way through, and then I can cut away like this, okay? And just similarly to what I did just a few minutes ago, I can kind of scrape this down until it gets to the joint, okay? All the way down, okay? Now I've got this other bone here like this. Okay, I'm going to cut down, because I know there's a bone there, because I have lots of experience. And then I'm going to cut along one side of this bone here, okay? Just like this, okay? Those shallow little cuts I was talking about before. I'm using my other hand to sort of open up the chicken as I go. Okay, so that's along one side of the bone here. So I want to do that on the other side now, just to make sure. And see, I can press right against the bone here so that I can make sure I'm trying to get as much meat off of there as possible. Okay, like this. I'm going to cut all the way through, all the way through. Okay, so here I have this beautiful chicken. Now I want to take this out of here. Okay, so I've removed this and I've scraped this down for a bit. I want to do this on the other side here too. So I've gone down either side with my knife. So what I want to do here now, let's cut that out, is pinch underneath and then get under here with my knife, just like I did before. And up we go. And I'm going to scrape down here like this. Okay. And back again and do it on the other side. Okay. Okay. And then, okay, so this is just kind of barely holding on here now, right at where the joint is. So I'm just going to be very careful. And I'm going to cut through, and there's the bones. And then here is the deboned leg. Okay, so for a couple things I have to be careful. I want to make sure I'm trimming off these little excess bits because they're kind of messy looking. Okay, well, I want to keep my board clean. The other thing I have to be aware of is this, okay? So this is a piece of cartilage, okay? This cartilage is kind of like the kneecap on your knee, okay? Imagine it's pretty, so what I basically want to do is I want to cut this out of here, okay? So I'm going to trying to cut a little bit just so I can get a grip on it, and I can pull it up, and then I can cut around it with my knife. I'm trying to be careful here. I don't want to cut through the skin. There's actually skin just on the other side of that, so I want to try and avoid cutting through the skin so I have a nice sort of beautiful, okay? So there we go, or not skin, but the flesh. The flesh on the other side of that is really thin. So, okay, so there is a deboned leg. So I'll show you that one more time. Okay, once again, I'm going to trim off this extra fat. Okay, cutting down one side. Okay, cutting down the other side. Okay, and then scraping all that delicious meat down. Okay, all the way down, down, down. And then I know the bone is here, so I'm going to cut. Okay, cut through. And then I'm going to feel for the bone with my knife. I'm going to press against the bone all the way down on one side like this. So there we go. And then I'm going to pull this back a little bit. Okay, and I'm going to cut down all the way down along the bone once again. Okay, notice I'm always trying to keep my fingers out of the way of the knife. Don't ever put your fingers in front of the knife because that's the best way to cut yourself. Okay, so I've removed the bone or the meat from either side of that bone. So now I'm going to get underneath and pinch and make myself room for my knife to get underneath. And I'm just going to cut all the way down and cut that off. And like before, some nice firm scraping. It's going to remove as much meat as possible off of those bones. Okay. And eventually that's going to come right off like that. There's my bones. I can use those for stock. And then once again, just going to flip that over, give it a quick look, trim off any weird excess bits that aren't going to make my chicken not so pretty. And then there's that white kneecap that I talked about before. Okay. Oh, and I got a little bit over here from another piece. So let's get rid of that. Cutting away from myself here to be safe as much as possible. Sometimes we just have to be really careful. There we go. Now I get a grip on it. Now I can just cut down one side of the cartilage. Okay. And off she comes. Okay. And there we go. Okay. So if you were going to go to the grocery store and buy this chicken deboned, you would actually, if you were to buy chicken thighs, okay, what you're going to get is something that looks maybe a little more like this. So I just cut, all I'm doing is taking that chicken leg meat, all I'm doing is just cutting that in half, okay? And you can imagine that sitting in one of those little styrofoam containers all lined up like this, okay? Just do it nice, neat, and tidy like this so you can really visualize it. And there's those chicken thighs that are so great to buy at the grocery store because they're so full of flavor. Okay, so we saw how to break a chicken into even-sized pieces with the bone in, and we saw how to remove the bone from a chicken so we can use it for boneless items.